Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to The Truth, where today we're going to have a little bit of a fun exercise. So this is going to kind of put you in my mind of how I think of things. Basically, of teams on paper. So when you look at their roster, I'm not saying this is where they're going to be. This is how would I, this is, oh yeah, I'm predicting this team to go like this season. Because I don't like doing those predictions. I like doing on paper predictions just because it's like, okay, on paper, this is what I'm kind of feeling. But actual predictions, it's too hard. You have injuries, you have guys who get traded, you have things that get moved around. Um, you know, you have coaches that get fired. There are so many factors that can go into it that's just not really that correct. It's so hard. I feel like what makes it a lot more fun and a lot more interesting is when you go, okay, this team on paper, I think will do this. Let me compare it to how I actually did and then figure out what happens. So this is something that I like to do. This is something I wanted to do with y'all. So to kind of get into this, starting out, we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I'm not going to really go into these teams in depth that much because I've already gone into them so much. But what we'll talk to you about is why I feel the way I feel. And this is going to be a bad team, but fun to watch. Basically, meaning I don't think they're going to, on paper, their roster doesn't show me going. Yeah, I think they could. I think they could realistically. I think this is a team who could, on paper, have to keep stressing that. This is a team who I think will win 9 games. Going from 4 to 9, that's 5 games. That's a big jump. Don't get me wrong. I think they made some really good picks. It's just I have to see it. Um, on paper right now, I think they are a good roster. I think they're going to have some fun games to watch. They surprised teams last year. They surprised the Cowboys last year. I think this is going to be a team who kind of shocks a couple more teams, but still needs time. Thankfully, Kyler Murray's coming off of that injury. He's going to need time to build chemistry with his receivers. You lose your best receiver, but you gain Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll see how the NFL reacts to that. Is the NFL going to quickly start doubling him, which the NFL have now started doing, where it's, usually against these first year receivers, they don't really double them. They kind of test them. Well, now when you see receivers popping off like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, they start doubling them. So is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to get that same type of love? We'll see. But we'll see what really happens. I'm really interested in seeing. The next team we have is the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people are high on the Atlanta Falcons. I think they're going to be middle of the pack. Don't get me wrong. I think they're going to do better. It's just when I look at the Falcons and I look at on paper their roster, it's nothing crazy to how I feel people are treating it. Because I feel people are treating this like the Atlanta Falcons are a playoff contender, which I'll get into because it's different from a Super Bowl contender and it's different from the playoff races. But they feel that way. And that's kind of the research I've been getting. I'm just like, hold on. Like, this is an older quarterback who is good. He's an older quarterback who's getting into the NFL. He's going not in into a new NFL team with a brand new head coach and a new offensive coordinator. He also has a worse roster on paper. When you look at the receiving core and you look at the team as a whole in the offense, it's worse than the Vikings that they had. And then when you go in and you go get another quarterback, it doesn't really tempt me. As well as when you look at it and go, well, he's older. He's coming off of an Achilles, which is a very tough injury to come back from. It's not like a hamstring. It's more serious. It takes time. Like, this isn't something you just kind of come back from. The hamstring and Achilles, both similar. They're not injuries you just come back from. They're injuries that when you come back from when you're 100, you still need time after that. You still need to work it to get back to where you are. How long is that process going to take? Because usually these are conversations we talk about saying, oh, well, he's a year off of that injury now. He should be back to normal. That's the conversation you have to have with Kirk Cousins, who is older too. And then, well, what happens if Kirk Cousins gets injured? Well, you have a good quarterback like Kirk Cousins, who is just in this case injury prone. Like that's not something surprising to say when we look at it and go, yeah, no, He is like when you look at his career, he is a very injury-prone quarterback. So how's he going to look like when he's taking harder hits and he's taking from faster guys in the NFL? So I want them to prove to me that they can be that team. I like the addition of Darnell Mooney. I think it helps out the receiving core. But I want to see this team take that leap because if it doesn't this year, I think they will get slightly better. I think this is going to be a probably 9-win team. But if this team doesn't get to the playoffs, they're going to have to start paying players. That Kirk Cousins contract is going to start biting them in the butt. And then by the time, you kind of hope by the time, because it is a 2-year deal for Kirk Cousins. By the time that deal's up, you hope that you have enough money that your roster has gotten better from this year to in 2 years. You hope that roster is better without counting the quarterback. Because if it's not, well, now you're kind of looking and going, well, taking the quarterback out, overall we got worse, and that's not good because of the contract. That's the one thing you want to avoid. It's a interesting maneuver. Ruka I didn't like because you already had guys at that position. You needed a true edge to help out the pass rush, which eventually they did get in Braylon Trice. Excuse me. But you could have done that in the first round and gotten a much better guy than Braylon Trice. No offense to Braylon Trice. It's just the truth, though. That's why I'm gonna have him at middle of the pack until they show me otherwise. Baltimore Ravens, Super Bowl favorite. I don't think this surprises anybody. The Ravens are good. Um, it's you lose Odell, but how much of that really makes a difference? Don't get me wrong, Odell's great and all, but at his age, how much is that really going to change your roster? So we'll see. I want to see how that roster comes out overall, but I really like the Ravens. Um, Texans. Uh, that's the team they're going to compete with. The Chiefs they're going to compete with. It's going to be a hard division, but I think they are. They are going to be able to do it. This is a team who's been knocking at that door and then been so close. There's also a really good defense. That defense has only gotten better. So we'll really see what happens. Getting into the next team, we have the Bills. They took a very interesting approach. This is a team who decided to kind of take a slight rebuild. Like it's honest, they did take a rebuild. They didn't reload because reload's letting guys go and not like letting them go into free agency and then just picking guys up or cutting a guy. No, they went through their team and just took the best players out. Um, I have these guys in the playoff contenders. I think they're still good, but they're not. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender next year. I don't think that surprises anybody with the roster that they have. They have a lot of young guys, so we'll see. We'll see how that really turns out. Also, the teams on the leftmost area are the teams who I have ranked higher. So it's going to go from right to lowest to left highest in these little brackets. Um, the next is the Panthers. I have them in the first number one pick contention. I like Xavier Leggett. I don't know how much of an impact he's going to be in the NFL. I like him. I don't know if I like him as a number one. Adam Thielen's only getting older. He's only going to get slower and worse. No offense to Adam Thielen, but it's like, how much can you really target Adam Thielen that much? You do add some other nice pieces. I think you got better at tight end. We'll see what you got at running back. I think your offensive line got better at some positions. We'll see. But you lost your best player on the roster. How much of that is going to affect you? Getting to the next pick, I have the Bengals, and I have the Bengals in the playoff race. Man, the thing with the Bengals is their offensive line has been so for so many years. It's something that they're going to have to prove to me. And then along with losing T. Higgins, I'm kind of looking at it going, or no, Tyler Boyd, I think. I think it was Tyler Boyd. Going in there thinking, man, you have two really good receivers, but what made it so good is you have three really good receivers, a nice tight end, and a nice running back. Now you have two. How much of that is going to hurt your offense? That's been so special. You know, the Bears I have at bad but fun to watch. The Bears got drastically better. Look, whenever you have a chance to add two receivers that look like they're going to be studs, you get Keenan Allen, and then um, you draft Roma Dunze. You kind of looking at this receiving core or this passing core in general, going, okay, Cole Kmet, um, Moore, Odunze, and Allen, and going, holy cow, that's really good. You get a younger guy, you get a cheap guy, you get the best quarterback in the draft. You look like you got better. We'll see how much better um, their quarterback is from the previous quarterback that they had. We'll see, but I do think this team got cheaper and better. Um, Look, the Browns I have at Super Bowl contenders, as long as they stay healthy, and on paper they have a great roster. They didn't have to do a lot. They addressed the things they needed to address, and they got better. As a team, I'm excited for if they can hit it. I love their roster. I love their receiving core because it got better. Um, I like their D line, the additions they did. This is exactly what I thought they should have done. So I think they're going to be a team who gets better and just kind of keeps progressing. I think this is a team we're going to look at who gets into the playoffs and goes, yeah, this is actually a pretty good team. This is holy cow! Like this team's actually really good. Like they have lots of good players. I feel like how good they are is going to keep them diverse, and it's going to put teams in binds. Um, the next pick I have is the Denver Broncos. I think this is on paper this is the worst team in the NFL. You lose so many starters. Like you did really say we're going to rebuild, and that's exactly what they're doing. They are rebuilding. When you let go of that many players, you're selling most of the house and going, look, we're just going to rebuild. We're going to build off of what we have, build what we drafted, and go from there. That's kind of how I feel about that. Another team who's going to be in the middle of the pack, I think it's going to surprise some people, is Dallas Cowboys. This is a team who literally said we're basically going to do dang near nothing in the offseason and then hope the draft kind of gets us where we want to be, and I don't think so. I don't like I don't like how they treat their off season. It feels like to me this is a year where they're going to say, "Look, we're not going to do a lot in the off season. We've given Dak all we can give him. We're just going to draft. We're going to save money. If Dak's the guy, he's going to make it work. If not, we're going to move on from Dak and we're going to try to roll a Trey Lance or somebody else. And we're going to also extend the team while we're going to extend the team. We're going to extend the players that need to be extended to keep the team good. We're just going to lose our quarterback, and that's kind of the approach that they're going to have. Like this is Dak's make or break of the year. The next team I have is the Detroit Lions. This isn't, this isn't a surprise. I think the Lions are a Super Bowl contender. I don't think I really need to go into more. I think their secondary is going to be elite next year on paper. It's kind of the team where you look at it and go, dang, like you look at their roster and go, those are some studs. The next team I have is it's the Green Bay Packers. I like the Green Bay Packers. I think they slightly got better. I think if we get the paper version of Jordan Love that we got last year at the end of the season, I think they're gonna have a really good year. I really do. Um, I think they're better than the Bills. I like their roster a lot more. Getting it with the Texans, this is going to surprise some people. I have the Texans as my other Super Bowl favorite. I really like the FC this year. I think they're really putting out some good teams that I don't know if the NFC can beat. Um, the Texans, man. When we talk about two teams prior to the start of last year, and we looked at their receiving core, taking out, well, I'll say this. When we looked at these receiving cores at the end of the season, taking out Stephon Diggs, their offense, the Texans' offense, was better. It was a lot better. And then you put Stephon Diggs into the Texans, it gets even more better. Um, I like their defense. I think their defense and offense got better. I think this is a team who's just going to keep improving. They're young. They're hungry. I love I think they have a great offensive coordinator. I think they have a really good defensive coordinator who is also their head coach. I think they're going to do a lot of good things. The next team I have is the Colts. I have them in the playoff race. I think the Colts are going to be a team who, on paper, we look at and go before the season and go, they actually have a really good roster. You look at their record last season with the teams that they lost to without their starting quarterback and Anthony Richardson and go, yeah, if Anthony probably played in that game, they probably win at least one, maybe a couple more games. So I think they're going to be a team who we look at the end of the season on paper and go, yeah, this shouldn't shock us why they're where they are. The Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team who's it kind of feels like it's a make it or break it year. Um, I like on paper, I like the Jags. They always have had a good team. I feel like they've gotten deeper at certain positions. I feel like this is kind of a team you look at and go, I like that addition there. I like that addition there. They definitely improved here. I like how much the receiving core has grown. It feels like it's gotten deeper. I feel like it's gotten better at the starting positions as well. Getting into the Chiefs, this is by no surprise Super Bowl contenders. I just feel like I don't know. My main thing is that starting cornerback position. That's why I don't have them roster wise Super Bowl favorites. Is because they're not they're not a team on paper who you look at and go on the defense and go, dang. I feel like they've gotten better at the receiving core slightly. Um, we'll see. They get older at tight end. Um, we'll see at their tackle spot too, which is gonna be interesting. But you still have Mahomes, so we'll see. That's kind of you still have Mahomes and Andy Reid. Another bad but fun to watch the team is the Raiders. Um, my main thing is their starting cornerback. I don't think they have a number one quarterback on that roster right now. It's kind of hard for me to say who they have on their roster. They lose their one of their starting receivers. They still have Devontae Adams. They lose a good receiver. They do drop back Bowers, but he's more of I imagine an H back instead of a typical Y. So you look at it and go, well, we'll see where they kind of end up. Yeah, but I think they definitely improved. Another bad but fun team to watch is the Chargers. Uh, it's mainly that receiving core, man. I don't know how to feel about that receiving core. That's what's kind of like, look, I think you'll be able to run the ball, but if you have the same attitude going into coming from college to the NFL, it's not going to work because you have to be able to throw the ball as well. You have to be able to launch that sucker around if you really want to succeed. Don't know if they're going to be able to do that. And that's why I kind of have them as that bad fun team to watch. I think running the ball wise on the offensive line, they're going to do great. They just don't have that true like top tier guy that the Bills had, like Stephon. They don't have like a Stephon Diggs. They can't do what the Bills did for so many years and go, well, yeah, receivers aren't really the greatest. Not saying anything about them. They're still NFL receivers. But NFL wise, they're not the greatest. But we have Stephon Diggs. We're fine. Like they don't have that option. The Rams. I love the Rams. I like it. People are looking at Braden Fisk like he is an Aaron Donald replacement, and they're thinking, "Oh, they drafted Aaron Donald just to replace all that production." No, look. At the end of the day, yes, he's going to play the same position Aaron Donald played, but I feel like their approach to it is pass rush by committee. So ends and defensive tackles, and get the defensive line overall better instead of just having Aaron Donald there. And I think they did that. They had multiple top tier pass rushers. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. The next team is the Dolphins. And for the Dolphins, I have them in playoff contenders. I think they are. I think they are a playoff contender. I have them slightly above the Bills and the Jaguars. I like their roster. I like what they've done. Um, I think this is a team who we kind of look at and go, on paper, it's like, hey, they got Odell. Their receiving core is amazing. You know, um, it's kind of like you will only go so far as how much you really put in the work. Um, the things that will hold them back is still their defense. I think their offense is going to be one of the best, as barring injury. On paper, it looks like one of the best. Defense, we'll see. You lose Xavier Howard, so we'll see how good that secondary really is. The next team is going to be the Vikings. I have them in the playoff race. My main thing is JJ McCarthy. You get really young. I mean, look, defensive wise, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot better. You had a really bad pass rush last year. It got a lot better. It really did. How good is that? How good is JJ McCarthy? That is the big question around the Vikings. If JJ McCarthy is the same level of good to where it's like he just does his job and it works, I think they move to Super Bowl contender. Like that's where they could be. Also a question is their running back room, but I mean that's the big one. So, but we'll see. We'll see. The next team is the New England Patriots. Their roster going into the draft wasn't the best. I feel like they really made a big dent to get it better with the quarterback, but we'll see what really happens. Um, I don't think I don't think they'll end up with the number one pick, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't really move that much, or if they ended up in the same spot that they were last year. Getting into it, we have the New Orleans Saints. I have the Saints in the playoff race in front of the Vikings. Their biggest thing was offensive coordinator, which they addressed. We'll see how that turns out. They still have a pretty good roster. Their defensive line got better on the pass rushing side. Um, Rotationally, they got better at stopping the run. So that D line got better. That secondary and the DB room, the cornerback room, got a lot better. I mean, I didn't think it was possible. They had one of the best secondaries. We'll see with Jordan Howden how that plays out. That's going to be a thing. Is can he produce to the level? If he did when he did play, he produced to a very similar level of Marcus May, which is why they let him go. Can he be on the field and be slightly better? Because if so, I think that secondary got better somehow. Um, and then also depth at safety. How's that going to be affected? Other than that, I think they got better in their linebacking room. That was one of their biggest weaknesses, was the fact that their depth at linebacker was not good. I think they got a lot better at it with the additions of Jalen Ford and Willie Gay. So we'll see. I think that defense, we'll see. Do you have question marks at safety? You have question marks at receiver 3. And you have question marks on the left side of your offensive line. Other than that, I think, this is a team who probably got, they got, it feels like they got better at every other position. So we'll really see. The next team I have is the Giants. Look, I like the Giants. I don't know if Daniel Jones and their receiving core can get it done. Look, you have Malik Neighbors, you get better at that. Darren Waller's contemplating retirement because of injury. If he does get injured again, how much of a decline is it going to be in the receiving game? You lose Saquon, which was such a big, impactful play on your offense. How much is that going to affect it? When is Kayvon Thibodeau finally going to take that next step into becoming a dominant pass rusher or a dominant defensive or a dominant guy off the edge? I don't know. So we'll really see with that. I have a bunch of questions around their roster. That's why I kind of have them so low. The New York Jets, I have in middle of the pack. And the only reason I have them in the middle of the pack is because when I look at it on paper and I compare it to the other teams in their division, I don't think it's as good. I don't get me wrong. I could easily see the Bills and the Jets flip. I wouldn't be surprised about that. My main thing is Rodgers' health. How is Rodgers going to be when he comes off that injury? And then the chemistry, because that's the two really big questions: is Rodgers going to come off his foot the same way he was last season and be that good? Is there going to be some last slug to it? Um, on paper, coming off of injuries are tough. In reality, coming off of paper injuries are tough. It just sucks. Um, and then how long is it going to take to build that chemistry to where you want to be, where Rodgers is comfortable throwing off that foot again and maneuvering that foot around? That's the real question. I think they got offensive line got better, but I could easily be talked into or easily see that their roster is better than the Bills. Like I could see that swap. I wouldn't be surprised. But right now, they haven't proven that to me yet. So on paper last year they didn't really prove that to me. I kind of have the same feeling about them. Um, this year, looking at it when I'm putting the results to the paper and moving around, changing my ideas, I didn't see any real difference. Then again, Rodgers was injured, so we'll see. It's just something I'm gonna have to wait and see with. But like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if they're playoff contenders. And explain the difference between playoff contenders, and playoff races. Let me guess. I guess I should stop and probably explain some of this. Number one pick competition. It's not crazy. These are teams who are going to be the worst of the worst. Guys are going to be who I believe on paper are probably going to be competing for the number one pick. Bad fun to watch are teams who aren't going to be competing for the number one pick, but are not really the best. They're not really in that you know about 500 range where you win half the games, lose half your games, but they're still fun to watch. They're gonna be better. They're gonna be sandwiched in between, but they're gonna have games. They're gonna have moments where like, dang, that's so cool. That's so much fun. Wow, play was crazy. Middle of the pack is gonna be a team who middle of the pack. They're gonna be an 500 team, give or take. It's not a true 500 team. Actually, no, it is true 500 team because there's 17 weeks, so 16 games. So these are your true middle of the pack teams who are going to be about 500. And you kind of look at it and go, well, they're good, but they need to make moves in certain areas. I don't know if their rosters are good enough to be any better. Some of these teams, or one of these teams, wasn't 500 last year. You're taking a step up. Is everything going to work out? There are a lot of questions, and this is why I have them on the rosters. This is why I have them at middle of the pack. Playoff race, teams who are going to be competing for a playoff spot. That's kind of where I have that. Playoff contenders, teams with rosters who I think are going to contend in the playoffs. They're going to make a run. These teams who I think could make a run. Super Bowl contenders. These are teams who I think will be knocking at the door trying to get into the Super Bowl this year. Super Bowl favorites, I think it's ours. The teams who I feel like are my Super Bowl favorites roster-wise. So I should have explained that earlier. My apologies. Getting more into it, the next team I have is the Philadelphia Eagles. I feel like the Eagles are a playoff contender. I have to see it. Their secondary got a lot younger. We've seen it to where, yes, they can make jumps. We've seen guys make jumps from college to the NFL and be great. We've also seen guys who made jumps into the NFL and kind of had their hiccups. We'll see it with their secondary. They're getting, you also had to change the schemes. Like you couldn't run it back. So how is that going to work? How is that going to work where you have different coaches now? I shouldn't say schemes. I should say different coaches. How is that going to work? On paper, is that going to work well? Like, do these players have these attributes to work well with this system? To work well with what these coaches are trying to, excuse me, well, what the coaches are trying to do? We'll see. Steelers, I think they're going to be middle of the pack. Um, this is a team who, man, it's going to be tough because a lot of teams are so good. I don't know if this is a team who we could look at and go, it's really their quarterback position. That's really the big question. Is their quarterback position going to be better than Kenny Pickett? Was that the right choice? Don't get me wrong. I understand what Kenny Pickett was. Is Russ going to do? Because you gotta look at it, though. You gotta look at the offensive coordinator Kenny Pickett had, and the offensive coordinator Russell Wilson had. Now I understand there are different offensive coordinators now for the Steelers. Is that going to work out with what Russ, or is he going to get even more worse? Because if that's the case, you really better hope Justin Fields hits. That's the big question. That is my big question. If not, I think this is a team who could be where the Bengals are or where the Browns are. But that quarterback position is a big question, and we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know how to feel about that when I'm looking at their roster on paper. The next team I have, it's the 49ers. And this is a team who, do I put them over the Lions? Do I put them over the Rams? I think they're better than the Browns. Where do I put this team? And I've keep going back and forth with it. But, man, I'll keep them where they finished over here. I like them. I like their picks. I guess I'll put them above the Chiefs for right now. It's a team where I keep going back and forth. It's just something where they got younger at certain positions. They got in rookies. If it pays off, they look like geniuses. And they got cheaper and they got better. I think there's a good chance that they got better in their receiving core. Crazy, right? I like the idea of getting a guy who's athletic, can run some good routes, and can go up and get contested ability. I think that fits their roster when you have a yak guy in Debo, a great route runner with some speed, and Ayuk, and then a guy who can make some contested throws in against skinnier defensive backs in their first round pick, and then having a George Kittle who can go be that true contested guy while having Christian McCaffrey at the backfield. Still have a good offensive line. They got younger in the secondary, so we'll see how that pans out. But that's really the questions are, how much of a difference are these rookies going to make for them? My next pick I have, or the next team I have, is the Seattle Seahawks. I have them middle of the pack. It's mainly their coaching staff. I want to see how good this coaching staff really is going to be. Because roster-wise, they have a good roster. But did they put the right people in place? On paper, we haven't seen nothing from this. We haven't seen nothing. Like, you're not predicting anything. Like, you can't predict really anything because we haven't seen anything. This is a guy who we really don't know a lot about. So we'll see. Especially with what they're going from, it's a big, big question mark. I like some of their roster pieces, but when I look on paper with their coaching staff and with their roster, I'm not comfortable putting them any higher. It's something that they're going to have to prove to me. It's something that where I look back next year on paper and go, this is a really good offensive coordinator. This is a really good system that they have. This is a good coaching that they have. I have to wait and see. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm putting them in between the Colts, but above the Saints. I think they're going to be competing for a playoff spot. Look, this is a team who the real question is, how good is that offensive coordinator going to be? If it is where If it's similar to where they have left off, I think they're going to be fine. If it's worse, could be worse than the Saints, could be worse than the Falcons. Like that's really where it's at. It depends. The second to last team I have is the Titans, and I think the Titans. It's hard to say, but I think the Titans are going to be in the number one competition for the pick. They're going to be the best team. I think they got slightly worse. I don't like their receiving core. Um, we'll see how their head coach is. I think they got worse at running back. It's kind of like you have a good front, you have good offensive line and a good front seven. We'll really see what happens after that because I really don't know. Like they got a lot younger. They put in different bunch of different pieces. We'll see. It's something you just got to wait and watch. Um, I think the Commanders will be a fun to watch team. The biggest thing is when you look at teams and their records of teams who put a bunch of different pieces together, there's been hurdles. It takes time. When you look at the stats, when you look at the information, when you pull out the paperwork and you look at it, it takes time. That's what we've continued so long. They've changed so much of their team. When I look at their pieces on paper, I like them. Some of them are older. I don't think that can get over that hurdle. That's where I have them right there. I can't predict these teams because I don't know, but this could be a team who is a lot better than not this season, but the year after. We'll see though. But on paper, I like their roster. I just don't think they can over hurdle the chemistry issue with how good they're like. I like their players. Some of their players on the linebacking position are a little bit older. You get better at center, you get better offensive line, but how much does that really make a difference? It's tough. But on paper, I like their roster. It's just we'll see. It's something I have question marks. How long is it going to take for everything to click together? Yeah. Other than that, thank you all for watching. Tell me what you all think. Do y'all think on paper, like these rosters, which rosters do you think are better? Which rosters do you think are worse? Other than that, thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to y'all next time.